Hey everybody, my name is James the Sock Guy, and I'd like to welcome you to the very first episode of my knitting podcast. Oh my goodness, if you had asked me years ago, if you had told me years ago that I'd be sitting in front of a camera to talk about knitting, I would have called you crazy, but here we are. I'm coming to you from my home in Pennsylvania, where I live with my wife, my cats, and our four guinea pigs, and my son, of course. How could I forget? But anyways, I don't know really what possessed me to do a knitting podcast or vlog, whatever you want to call it. To me, a podcast is something that you listen to, so I don't really want to call it that. A vlog, I guess you could say. Anyways, I mean, it's been something that I've been thinking about for a little while, to just sort of chronicle my knitting journey. But I guess with the new year and 2025 and all that kind of stuff, I know a lot of people are getting into that now. So I figured, what's one more? The world probably doesn't need another knitting podcast, but here we are. My podcast, though, is just primarily going to focus on sock knitting because that's what I love to do. Um, but I'm going to tell you, I guess I want to start with what this vlog is not going to be, what it's not about. It's not knitting tutorials. I'm not going to talk about knitting tutorials. I'm not going to show you any techniques or anything like that. Maybe I'll toss in a tip or trick, from time to time, but I'm not going to be showing you how to do heel turns or pick up gusset stitches or anything like that because honestly, there is already hundreds of videos on YouTube on how to do that stuff, and most of them are from much more qualified individuals than myself. So if you want to learn how to do something or any technique that I talk about, I'll probably link to a video tutorial in the section below so you guys can check that out because that's not just what I'm about. I don't consider myself a good teacher or anything like that. I just love knitting. I just love to talk about knitting. I love to knit socks. But yeah, so I guess that's where we are. That's where we're gonna start. Let's see. I guess I should kind of just make this. I'll make this kind of like a short introduction video, I guess you can say, before we get started. I'll talk about some of the stuff I'm knitting and things like that. But I want to tell you where my knitting journey began. It actually began with crochet, as a lot of knitters do. It was well, first of all, I come from a long line of fiber artists. My grandmother, my great grandmother, my mother, they're all into fiber arts and things like that. So it was something that I was familiar with as I was growing up in Canada. I now live in the United States, but when I was growing up in Canada, I was surrounded by a bunch of amazing women who were into the fiber arts. I remember one time my mom tried to teach me, or I said, "Mom, what are you doing? What's that all about?" And I think she tried to teach me how to crochet, but I was under 10 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. I remember though that I really wanted to learn. I really wanted to make a pair of socks, and so I had crocheted this straight line type of thing, and it was all wonky and things like that. And I was like, this isn't for me. Whatever. Fast forward, here we are, some four decades later. I'm 47 years old right now, and here I am talking about knitting socks and things like that. But anyways, my journey began. 2021, right at the beginning of 2021, because at the end of 2020, I'm gonna be real with you here, guys. I was really struggling mentally with my mental health, and I found myself in the hospital on New Year's Eve of 2020. I was in a really bad place, and I said I don't want to be in this bad place, so I went to the hospital and I got hooked up with a therapist and some drugs from my primary care doctor to help keep my brain right, and we figured all that stuff out. Um, but when the calendar rolled over to 2021, my friend who I was talking to, who had been through a lot of her own stuff, when she was in therapy, part of her therapy was keeping her mind off of stuff, and she learned how to. It was crochet was their therapy. So I figured, I'll get. What have I got to lose at this point? I already feel like I'm at rock bottom. My mental health is in the can. So what the hell? So I was working at Michael's, the craft store at the time, so there was no shortage of yarn available to me or anything like that. So picked up some yarn, picked up some crochet hooks, and I just started to crochet. I watched some YouTube videos and, just crocheted back and forth a blanket. Before I knew it, I had crocheted a blanket, and I thought, man, I really actually enjoy this, not just for my mental health, but I really like this. So I started crocheting more and more blankets, amigurumis, hats, shawls, everything you can think of. And yeah, so that was much of my 2021 was spent improving my mental health, therapy, crocheting, all that kind of good stuff. But by the time September or October rolled around of that year, I thought, man, I really, really want to learn how to knit because that's what my mother and my grandmother primarily did. And I really wanted to knit some socks. So once again, just like crochet, I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, got some knitting needles, and I taught myself how to knit. And like any knitter, I started off with just a basic, rectangle scarf, all knits and purls back and forth, just learning the basics. And from there, I just kind of, took off from there. I started knitting more things, again, hats and cowls and shawls. I knit a sweater at one point for my friend who had got me into fiber arts. That's the only sweater I've ever knit, though. I'm not a big sweater guy. I'm not a patient person, so the amount of time it takes to knit a sweater, I know the end result is probably gorgeous. And I have tried it. I've tried to knit the Radari sweater, which I absolutely love it, and I would love to own it. But I just haven't had the patience to sit down and knit it from start to finish. So, but anyway, so here I am, and I guess into my knitting. It was probably about a month or two into my knitting journey when I decided that I wanted to teach myself how to knit socks. So once again, I took to YouTube, found I believe her name is Kay Litton, the crazy sock lady, who I'm sure you're familiar with, you've heard of. Yeah, so it was off from the races there. I learned how to knit socks, and I've never looked back, really. In the interim, I've knit a bunch of other things. I think as a knitter, you kind of experiment with all these different things as to what you enjoy knitting the most. Some people really love shawls like Stephen West. Some people really love sweaters like Ashley Lillis. Some people just love knitting garments and love knitting different things. For me, it's socks because they're fast for me. They're fun. So many different patterns, so many different colors, things like that. And I can, knit a pair of socks in like a week and a half, 2 weeks stretching it. I do have a job. Knitting is not, I don't just sit around and knit all day. I do have a job. So I can knit, a pair of socks pretty quickly. And for me, I like that sort of instant gratification. And I love, here's the thing. I mean, I could knit shawls, but who's going to wear them? Not me. I don't wear shawls. My wife doesn't wear shawls, really. No one in my family that I know really wears shawls. So I would knit these shawls and then I just roll them up and set them off to the side. I mean, I could give them as gifts or something like that, but it's not practical. You know what I'm saying? Same with like hats. I've knit and crocheted a bunch of hats, toques. If you're Canadian. But again, you can only have so many. Winter only lasts so long, things like that. But for me, socks, I wear knitted socks all the time. I can wear, knitted socks in the summer. I can wear them in the fall, the winter. People don't necessarily think of, knit socks as a summer wear, but man, superwash merino and nylon is actually pretty good for your feet in the summertime. So I have no problems about wearing my knit socks in the summertime. So all that is to say that I eventually discovered that the thing I love knitting the most is socks. So that's pretty much where I am right now in my sock knitting journey. I absolutely adore knitting socks. January has been off to a bit of a rocky start, so I haven't knit a whole bunch. I'll throw up a pair right now. This is the first pair that I finished in January. This was just your straight basic vanilla socks. The yarn was from Arcane Fiberworks up in Canada. they do some beautiful, beautiful colorways. This one I think is called Lilac Lullaby. I knit these socks for my wife because they reminded her of some sort of anime. She likes anime. So there's some kind of colors there, but to me they look very spacey, nebula, those kind of colors like that. But anyways, that's a pair of socks that I knitted for my wife. And then I actually do have another pair that I've knit this year so far. I have these Trompe Le Monde socks by Summer Lee that I finished knitting. Um, let's see here now. I knit these probably in about a week and a half, but these I absolutely love. I saw this pattern. Oh, I didn't bring the book with me, but it's Summer Lee's The Sock Project book. A ton of amazing patterns in there, a ton of great tips and tricks from Summer Lee. She's amazing. I mean, if you love to knit socks, you got to check out Summer Lee. But anyways, these are the Trompe Le Monde socks. It is just your basic. I mean, Trompe Le Monde translates to pretty much fool the world. So while these look like complicated, color work socks, they're really not. You only knit they're done in two colors, but you only knit with one color at a time. And it's just slip stitches that you bring down to create this cool effect. Guys, I apologize if the lighting isn't perfect in here right now. I'm still, this is my first video. I'm still learning the ins and outs and things like that. So anyways, so I had the yarn is Cascade Heritage sock yarn. I bought a bunch of up until this point, I had really only knit. I'd only really knit vanilla socks with variegated yarn. I was never really a solid color kind of guy. I just figured, I like variegated yarn. I like the cool, patterns it makes and things like that. But this year for 2025, one of my personal goals is to knit with more solid colors, be it stripes or pattern socks or things like that. So I bought a bunch of Cascade Heritage yarn, and these were the two colors that I picked for my Trompe Le Monde socks. You'll notice that I knit them, opposite one another. One's got the pink, cuff. The other one's got the yellow, and they're sort of opposite of one another, which I really, really liked. But they're really fun, easy socks to knit, man. I mean, these were a breeze. I mean, they look complicated, but Summer Lee's pattern is so easy to follow in her book, The Sock Project. So I have worn these a bunch of times. You can notice they're a little loose on the blockers right now. But I absolutely adore these socks. These are so much fun. Yeah, so that is another pair that I've finished this year. I am almost done my third pair. These, my best friend who got me into fiber arts, her name is Michaela. We are big Swifties. We absolutely love Taylor Swift. She went to the Eras tour. I did not, sadly. Oh my God. But anyways, she had a birthday. I was a bit late on the birthday gifts. I'll be honest with you, my father passed away in January. So that's why January was a tumultuous month. So, oh man, that's tough to talk about. But yeah, so I guess part of the reason I'm doing this podcast is a way to, I guess, keep my mind off of those kinds of things, and just have somebody to talk to about my knitting. Here in the YouTube community and knitting community and things like that. But anyways, my father passed away in January. So my Michaela's birthday was the beginning of February. Honestly, I couldn't focus enough to get anything done in time, but here I am now. I'm getting back to my crafty ways. Grief, I think, is something that's, is always going to be with me. But it's just how you deal with it, how you compartmentalize it. I want to be able to think of the good times with my father, and not have it affect me emotionally, not have it make me cry, stuff like that. So that's going to take a while. But I know grief is something we've all dealt with in our lives, and really, this is the first time my grandmother and my grandfather have passed away. But this is the first time, I've had a parent. My mother is still alive, but this is the first time I've had a parent pass away. So it's been a little rough, but we're getting through it, But all that is to say, anyways, I'm back on track with my crafty ways, and because my friend and I like Taylor Swift so much, I am knitting her a pair of these Eras Tour socks. They feature colors from Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. If you're a Swiftie, you'll recognize these colors right away. We have green for Debut, gold for Fearless. We got purple Speak Now, red for Red, blue for 1989, black for Reputation, pink for Lava, and then we got oh my God. And then we got gray for Folklore, brown Evermore, and then we got Midnights. I did Midnights in a turquoise. Some people like to do it in a navy blue or anything like that. Honestly, I didn't have a navy blue on hand, um, so I figured turquoise would be fine. That's great. Midnights, and then if you know Taylor Swift, at the end of her Eras tour, close to it, she released the Tortured Poets department, and so I did the toe and the cuff in sort of a gray, light gray, for the Tortured Poets department, and I will be adding in an afterthought heel afterwards. That's why it's called an afterthought afterthought heel, because I'm putting it in afterwards. But would you believe I actually I've only ever knit socks with the heel flap and gusset. I didn't actually start knitting the afterthought heel until I think my last socks of December was the very first time I tried an afterthought heel in my 3 years of knitting. So, and I actually really, really liked it. So I'm going to do it again with these socks for my best friend. I'm going to put in the afterthought heel. I've marked, where I want it to go and stuff like that. So, and I remember cutting into the yarn for the very first time when I did my afterthought heel. I thought, oh my God, this is so nerve wracking. I spent all this time knitting this sock. Am I just going to flub it up now with this cut? But I didn't. I did it right my first time, both socks. Fantastic. I was so happy with it. And I learned a lot. I learned that maybe the heel should have been positioned just a little bit further up the sock. I learned that maybe I should have knit just a couple more rows before I started the decreases, things like that. And it was for me, so it was no big deal. I still wear them. They slip off my foot a little bit and things like that, but it's fine. It's fine, and these will be fine for my bestie. So I got this one done. I am just about to start the turquoise on the second sock, and then I can do the toe and Kitchener stitch all that off, and then add the afterthought heels in, and I'm done. So I'm hoping to be done those. It's Sunday, obviously. That I'm probably not going to get them done today, but maybe by Wednesday I'll have them done. So the next vlog that I do, I'll be able to show you a finished pair of socks for those, and hopefully I've started another. What else do I got going on? That's pretty much it right now. I did buy a pattern, a Stephen West sock pattern. Stephen West is great. When I first started knitting, I was watching a bunch of YouTube videos. I came across Stephen West and his obviously gorgeous shawls that he knits and designs and creates and things like that. Honestly, they're not for me. Like I said, I'm not a shawl guy, and that's fine. But I realized that, and I only realized this like a week ago, that Stephen West knits sock patterns, and I love fun, funky sock patterns. He creates these sock patterns. So I went to his website and I found, I think they're the Splish Splash socks. I'll put a picture up here on the screen. But I really, really like these socks, and I think I'm going to try and knit those next. I'm not a fan of those colors that he's got on display, and that's fine. To each their own. Everybody loves what they love. I'm gonna pick some different colors for those, but I really like that pattern. I think those would be a lot of fun to knit. So I think I'm gonna try and knit those next. I also have to knit a pair of socks for my wife. I got this yarn here. This is from Arcane Fiberworks as well in Canada. Love Arcane Fiberworks. This colorway is called Moonlight Magic, and my wife wants a pair of socks out of these, and she just likes straight vanilla socks, which is fine. Sometimes you just need to do some mindless knitting. To be honest, I've never really been a patterned sock guy. I've mostly just always knit vanilla socks. But again, like my goal of knitting with more solid colors in 2025, my goals are to also branch out and knit more patterned socks. So I'm going to knit patterned socks for myself this year. But like I said, these are just going to be a straight vanilla sock for my wife. I'm kind of anxious to see how these knit up. I mean, Arcane Fiberworks, they have some really, really great colorways. I have one. Well, I don't have it here, but it's called Bride of Chucky from the horror movie. I love horror movies. Um, I absolutely, I got the Camp Crystal Lake hat on. My two aesthetics. I tell you what, here I am wearing a Frog and Toad shirt. I absolutely adore Frog and Toad. Awesome. And then I have a Camp Crystal Lake hat on, Jason Voorhees. Those are my two vibes, wholesome and horror. Off to my right is a Nightmare on Elm Street poster. Behind me is a Friday the 13th poster and a Halloween movie poster. Original movie posters. I absolutely love horror movies. My job is I am actually a Oh, excuse me, man. I'm not gonna edit anything out of this, man. This is all real, guys. Yeah, I'm burping. I'm whatever. If I let a curse word slip, fuck it. Things like that. I don't care. Let's just have some fun here. But yeah, my job is a news reporter for MovieWeb.com, so I report on movie and TV news that breaks throughout the day. And I also interview celebrities from time to time with the movies and TV shows that they have coming out. I've only done one interview so far this year. In January, I interviewed Kim Coates from Sons of Anarchy. He played Tig. He was in that new Netflix series American Primeval. He's going to be in The Walking Dead, Dead City Season 2 coming up. So I got a chance to talk to him. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, that's my job. I just write about movies and TV news all day. Sometimes I get to talk to some pretty cool people. And when I'm not doing that, I am knitting obsessively. Knitting. I love knitting. I love movies. I love watching TV. Right now, I'm watching The West Wing on Max. I missed it the first time around. I only ever saw like a few episodes of The West Wing. And it's funny because I'm not into I'm not into politics. I'm not a political person. But for some reason, The West Wing just captivates me. Maybe because it's a fantasy of what should be right now. But um, I've just been enjoying The West Wing. My wife and I were watching The Pit on Max with Noah Wyle. Oh, I love that show. If you grew up in the 90s and you loved ER, that had Noah Wyle in it, you're gonna love The Pit. The Pit is awesome. And I'm watching Dexter Original Sin on Showtime, which is also awesome. I love Dexter, love serial killer stuff, love true crime, all that good stuff. But anyways, I know that some knitting podcasts, they talk about the books they read. I don't read a lot of books. I used to read a lot of books. I actually used to write books. I have a few published books on Amazon, some horror and some romance novels and stuff like that. And I used to be a really, really big reader. But now I just don't have as much time as I want to. There's so much going on, and every once in a while I'll pop on an audiobook. I love audiobooks, so I will listen to an audiobook. But for the most part, my time is spent knitting in front of the watching movies and TVs and things like that. So that's who I am, and I'm hoping that this podcast will just, I don't know, help me, maybe help a few people, and we can just have fun, talk about knitting in the, let's do this. If you're watching this for the first time, let me know in the comments how you started knitting, where your knitting journey began, or crochet, or fiber, whatever. Where did your crafty journey begin? Let me know in the comments, and I'll talk about some of those in the next video. I'm going to be realistic. I would love to do one of these every week, but I just can't. I just don't have the time. My weekends are pretty much the only time I have free, really. So I'm gonna set a tentative goal of releasing one once every 2 weeks. That is what I would like to happen. So if I put my mind to it, I know I can do it. So in a couple weeks, we'll come back. I'll have some more finished socks to show you. We'll get more into the nitty gritty of crafting socks and things like that, and the things I like and don't like. We'll talk about knitting podcasts I watch, more movies and TV shows and things like that. So yeah, guys, I really appreciate you coming along with me on this journey. This is exciting for me. I've never done anything like this. I've never put myself out here on YouTube in any way. Um, so yeah, this will be fun. I'm looking forward to meeting some cool people and connecting with the knitting community. I'll put my social media links down below. Pretty much the only social media platform I'm on right now is Blue Sky. Um, I have an X account. I have my Facebook is personal. I don't have a public Facebook account. It's private. So that's just for friends and family. But my knitting journey, I mostly chronicle on Blue Sky, and I started an Instagram account for my sock knitting journey, which is very, very young. So I'll put those links down below in the bottom, in the description, stuff like that. So yeah, guys, thanks for watching my very first knitting vlog. I don't even have a name for it, so I can't say, hey, next time on the Socktacular Sock Podcast. You know, we'll see. Anyways, maybe by the time this makes it to YouTube, there'll be a name down below. But anyways, guys, thank you so much. I look forward to doing this again with you in a couple weeks, and yeah, happy knitting, everyone.